Hey everyone, you're watching KTAL News Now. I'm your host Anthony Mocklin, and today is Wednesday, which means it is Wellness Wednesday, where we will be talking all things health, nutrition, anything you might need to live a healthier and happier lifestyle. And if you've been paying attention to some of the national headlines, you know that there are investigations ongoing into Walmart stores, particularly involving radioactive shrimp. Now, on Wellness Wednesday, we love to talk about nutrition and health, and nutrition especially because it is very important to know exactly what is going into your bodies and what you're eating, where they came from. In this case, particularly is very intriguing because it you might be thinking radioactive shrimp, like how did that even happen? But Louisiana Lieutenant Governor Billy Nungesser is pushing for an inspection fee that would be around 10 cents per pound on all imported seafood, And these radioactive shrimp were found to be imported from Indonesia and sold in Walmart stores throughout the Gulf South. And last week, the FDA warned the public about select imported frozen shrimp that were being sold to Walmarts in 12 southern states, including Louisiana. And Billy Nungesser sent a letter to President Donald Trump and the Louisiana congressional delegation in order to try to get this fee passed. And he believes that this fee would enhance the oversight when it comes to imported seafood and primarily to protect the American families that are bringing this food into their home and consuming these products. I mean, it's very important to have a very thorough inspection to make sure that something like that does not happen because the effects of radiation are incredibly detrimental. I don't know if you've ever seen the docu series, like it's a fictionalized version of it, but Chernobyl on HBO Max. Highly recommend. It's genuinely one of the best miniseries I've ever seen in my entire life. So if you haven't seen that, be sure to check that out. But if you have seen it, you know exactly what radiation can do to the body. So it's important that we try to avoid this at all costs, especially in our meals. And this is part of a wider push, especially in the Gulf South region, to force restaurants and food vendors to label their products if they have imported seafood, especially shrimp, on their menus. And if you're from Louisiana, especially New Orleans like me, I'm a snob when it comes to shrimp, you could say. I would genuinely prefer Gulf shrimp over any other shrimp. I mean, that's just how I am. I mean, I'm sure a lot of people feel the same way because I feel like a lot of imported shrimp tend to be super, super small and like neon pink. So it's like that compared to like authentic Gulf shrimp. It's not even a competition for me. But like I said, I'm a kind of a snob when it comes to that, just being from New Orleans, and you know how we are about our seafood, so that's just me. But speaking of the Gulf, the bacteria that has been found in the Gulf has found to be flesh-eating in some areas, and the states along the Gulf Coast are bracing for a surge in infections from this flesh-eating bacteria, and our Dan Jovic has more on that.
At LSU Health Science Center in New Orleans says Louisiana has seen an alarming jump in cases this summer. He says a large percentage fall ill when a person is in ocean water or brackish water and the bacteria enters the body through small breaks in the skin. However, some people become infected by eating raw or undercooked shellfish, particularly oysters. Doctor says antibiotics for food poisoning do not work as well when the germs enter through the skin.
Surgery is often needed to contain the infection, and some of these patients may need to go to the operating room multiple times to remove the dead infected tissue. Unfortunately, some may require even amputations.
Louisiana Department of Health confirms 20 cases in the state this year. All were hospitalized and 4 died. Doctors say severe cases are seen more often in elderly patients and people with weakened immune systems.
And for those of you who don't know, Dan mentioned brackish water, and that is the mixing of seawater from the ocean, particularly salt water, and fresh water from rivers or streams. And that is very common in Louisiana, especially in Lake Pontchartrain, which technically is not a lake. It is technically an estuary because the water from it flows from the Mississippi River into the lake, and then the lake itself flows down to the Gulf, and that makes it an estuary because it flows out into that wider, larger body of water, which is the ocean. And that's where you get that mixing of brackish water, which is sea or salt water, with that fresh water. And like I said, it goes out into the ocean. And there, in the ocean itself, it is a very vast and very large area of water. And so many different creatures live there, particularly turtles, which a local reptile sanctuary in Shreveport is shining a spotlight on a Shreveport mall, which has a turtle pond inside of it. And the conditions of it are particularly being highlighted by Steve Kennedy, who is the owner of Steve's Snaketuary. And he said he has been receiving messages about the conditions of this enclosure for the last year or so. And KTAL's Grace Jensen has more on the action he is taking to help prevent this from happening.
Steve's Snaketuary has been educating the public about reptiles for more than a decade. Although their main focus is snakes, the well-being of a group of turtles at Mall St. Vincent in Shreveport caught owner Steve Kennedy's attention about a year ago. He says he's had no luck with mall management.
I've talked to mid-level and lower-level management for this whole time, and they always say that they have to go up through the ranks to figure out what we need to do about the situation.
He decided to take it to social media, posting an almost 10-minute video of the enclosure in the mall.
It's got a painted shell, which is not good at all for turtles.
Zooming in on the individual turtles and taking note of their physical conditions.
It got to be a whole lot of people contacting me about it, and honestly, I just got to a point where I was tired of trying to deal with things behind the scenes. So I decided to go ahead and make it public. I figured once I made it public, something could actually get the ball rolling and get things done about it.
Kennedy says he is in the process of working with Mall St. Vincent to get the turtles to a veterinarian and to make the necessary changes to their enclosure. And he stresses the importance of having experts available.
Have somebody that's properly trained in taking care of reptiles to come and take care of those for them. Reptiles and amphibians require certain things that specific things that they need.
And I remember it really is sad to see the conditions that these turtles are living in. I remember growing up as a kid, my favorite animal was a turtle. And I always had, turtle stuffed animals and everything of that nature. So, and I originally actually wanted to be a marine biologist. I don't know if you've seen any of our previous shows on KTAL News Now where we had a little get to know the host with me, where I was interviewed by my boss, Marissa Diaz, and she grilled me pretty much on everything, but we still made it fun. And I told her that, I originally wanted to be a marine biologist growing up as a kid, but I actually developed not like a deep fear, but I'm pretty scared of the open ocean when it comes to open waters and swimming and not knowing what exactly is below me while I'm swimming in it, especially if I can't see like the bottom of where I am. You just never know what's out there. But if you've seen one of the previous episodes of KTAL News Now, we talked about another brain-eating amoeba that has been affecting people for years and years and years in certain areas of the country. But so it's very important to know exactly what you're swimming in. If you're swimming in very, very murky water, you can't really see what's in it. It's very important that you take safety measures while you're doing so. If you want to have a good time, nobody's stopping you, but please make sure if you're feeling well afterwards, if you're feeling unwell afterwards, to make sure you seek medical treatment, whether it's a headache or anything. It usually starts with a headache, so be sure to receive the proper treatment for that. But another way that humans are being treated, particularly in the organ transplant community, is by using organs from animals, specifically pig organs. And this form of transplantation is called xenotransplantation, where for the first time ever recently, a lung from a genetically modified pig was transplanted into a patient. The patient had been brain dead, and the organ survived in the patient for 9 days before the family requested that they stop the experiment and allowed him to pass on. But in the United States and China's history, at least 6 people in those countries have received organs from genome-edited pigs in the last few years, and these include hearts, livers, kidneys, and a thymus. And by surviving this long in a human for 9 days, it suggests that almost any pig organ can work when transplanted into a human. And this scientists and doctors hope that one day this might save thousands who end up passing away while waiting for an organ donor on the transplant list, because with the lack of suitable organs that are able to be donated to recipients, it can be a very, very long wait, and it sort of like bottlenecks at the top of who gets what and just how long you're on the wait list to receive that what is more often than not a life-saving donation of an organ. But this case is particularly interesting because lungs are the most difficult to transplant, and this is due to the fact that it has the most blood vessels of any transplantable organ, and this means that it's prone to attack from the body itself and the immune system because it senses this foreign object, it's not familiar with it, so it starts to attack it, and this can lead to blood clots as well as tissue damage. And the process of this xenotransplantation is done by removing 3 genes from the pig organ to reduce the risk of that immune response, and they also add 3 human genes to it to protect it from that rejection, to make it seem familiar, at least in practice. And in this case, with the pig organ, with the lung, there were no signs of rejection, infection, or graft failure within the first 3 days after the surgery. But 24 hours after the surgery, they did observe lung swelling, as well as some of the tissue being damaged due to the lack of oxygen during the procedure. It was being away from the pig body for so long. But the antibodies of the immune system attacked the organ on day 3 and 6, and they did observe that the damage involved from it had reduced by day 9. But at this point, like I said, the family requested that the experiment be stopped, and they did not get to do any further testing on it, but it allowed the patient to pass on peacefully. But like I was saying, this is a very encouraging sign. The thought is that it would be a sort of like stopgap while people are on the waiting list for an organ transplant, and it's kind of like a band-aid for that. Like I said, while they're waiting, they won't have to be on the verge of death, essentially, because there are thousands of people who die on the waiting list every single year, and this is thought to be a way to prevent that or prolong their time here so that they can wait a little bit longer to hopefully get the proper donor from the right recipient. But my next topic also involves nutrition, as we talked about earlier this month. But so many people do not have access to proper nutrition and proper food. They're not eating all the time. And September is actually Hunger Action Month, and Harvest Regional Food Bank is taking an early effort to raise awareness about this. And the way they're doing so is they just had their annual Hunger Action Luncheon last week, and our Hunter Trombetta shows just how they're giving back to the people who are supporting them in their fight against hunger.
Action Month in September is a nationwide campaign that puts a spotlight on the issue of food insecurity. Texarkana-based Harvest Regional Food Bank is celebrating what it means for their community with the annual Hunger Action Luncheon.
Not only is this to raise awareness for the issue of food insecurity, but also to make sure that we recognize, and we want to thank our volunteers, our agency partners, pantries that really are the boots on the ground.
All those who work to ensure the food bank can feed those in need were in turn served a meal as thanks, and a select few of them were even recognized with awards.
Keep doing what you're doing, baby. Keep doing what you love you, Miss Linda.
I love you.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Like Linda Walker with the Community Alternative Prevention Program.
We started off with a vacation Bible school. Later on, we realized that you can't
really can't address education if they're hungry.
She was given the top honor of Hunger Hero for her decades of work in Little River County.
It's really been about 39 years that we've been doing this. And in that time, you run across a lot of people who you feel like are a lot more deserving. A lot more deserving than I am. So to get recognized for this is really an honor, because I feel like it's just really my reasonable service. I'm not doing anything any more than anyone else.
What she hopes that people keep in mind during Hunger Action Month is that it really does take the whole community to fight hunger.
The first person who put down the first dollar for us to start KTAL was a custodian at the school. She didn't have the money to do it, but she put down the first $5 for us to start.
And it is a very touching and heartfelt thing that they're doing. Like I said, not everybody has this access to readily available food, and some people might not even know if they're able to put food on the table that day, or where their next meal will be from. So it's very important to reach out to these communities and these nonprofit organizations who are doing so much good in the community to help these people in need. And you can find resources and more on our website at ktalnews.com, which is also where we stream KTAL News Now every day, Monday through Friday at 1 p.m. Be sure to stick around for the rest of this week, as we will be hosting a very special interview with one of our digital team members about the 20th anniversary of Hurricane Katrina and the effects that are still being felt today. But like I said, you can catch that on KTAL News Now every Monday through Friday at 1 p.m. You can find all of our previous episodes on KTAL News Now on our YouTube page at KTAL News. But for now, I'm Anthony Mocklin. Have a great rest of your day. Stay safe, stay healthy, and thank you for joining us.